How's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it, so I like to make myself available to be a resource for you to ask all of your questions about politics, and you don't got to worry about getting judged or roasted or debated or anything like that. This is not the place where I yell at people for having different political opinions than me. This is not the place where I bring people up and get into a fight with them, and then we both try to own each other, and then nobody learns anything. That is not what I am here for. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. This is a no judgment zone. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care if you don't vote. I don't care if you are left or right or center, if you're MAGA, if you're a liberal cuck like myself. This is a judgment-free zone, so you can ask whatever you like. You don't got to worry about if I ask this question, he's gonna think I'm some sort of MAGA fanatic, or if I ask this question, he's gonna think I'm some sort of squishy libtard. Oh, if I ask this question, he's gonna think I'm a big old dum dum. There's no judgments here either way. There's no such thing as a dumb question. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it, and I was really worried about trying to learn about politics when I was a young fella. I didn't want to sound stupid. It took me a while to realize that there was a difference between uh, the federal Senate and the state Senate, or the federal House and the state House. And so, yeah, like all of this was a long learning process for me. And now I like to make myself available to other people who might feel intimidated to try to ask questions about politics. Maybe you don't know who Hegseth or Patel or Bondi are. I am just here to be a resource for you guys. If you heard something on the news today, you don't know what reconciliation is, you don't know what the filibuster is, you don't know what a continuing resolution is, you want to know how tariffs work, I'm here for you guys. That is all I am doing. JD says, what do you enjoy outside of politics? I like movies and reading and video games and going to nice dinners with my wife and, stuff of that nature. Regular shit. I'm not really into sports. That's like one of my big, things where everybody seems to be into it and I don't really give a shit. All right. Thank you for your question, JD. Appreciate you being here. All right. If anybody's got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat. Samurai Destroyer, good to see you again. I hope that you're having a good week. Let's get into it as per usual, my man. So, yeah, if anybody's got any questions about politics, let me know in the chat. I'm here to answer all your questions. Maybe you're somebody on the right. This is your opportunity to ask somebody on the left a question. Hey, man, why are you like this? Why do you think that? Why do you vote for those people? What are some policies that you think are good where I don't see, I've always been told that people on the left are real pieces of shit. So, let's talk about it. Gojo says, is Trump really ruining the country like people saying he is, or things are getting better? No, he's 100% ruining the country. He's ruining the country and he's making himself rich using our tax dollars. It's fucking infuriating. Everybody should be pissed about it. Everybody should be activated and screaming about it. We are spending more right now, but we are getting less. The Trump administration is shutting down programs, destaffing, defunding, and yet for some reason we are spending more now than we ever did during the Biden administration. Uh, we are closing down programs that help farmers sell their food. We have closed down programs that stop deadly diseases from coming into this country. We are no longer able to track diseases. So there's currently a salmonella outbreak that the CDC is not well staffed enough to let us know about. It is just independent reporting is the only reason why we know about it. He's putting all these tariffs on and then taking them off. The markets are in chaos. Nobody knows what to do because they don't know what the tariff policy is going to be today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. And he's lying about all the things that he's saying that the tariffs are going to do. He says, "Oh, we put these tariffs on because that country is screwing us," and then that country lets him build a Trump Tower, and he's like, "All right, well, tariffs off," and it's like, wait, so are they not screwing us because now you have a Trump Tower in that country? Like, is that really the entire fucking point? Was just to extort countries into letting you build a fucking course there? Let's see here. Tyro, good to see you again. Do you think of democracy? What do you think of democracy? It's probably the best system of government that exists, Let's see here. Gojo says, but we will get through it till next term. Maybe, Gojo, but I do not believe that there's some magical force that is going to fix all of the problems, Gojo. I believe it is people like you and me that have to make sure that people are on top of this shit, because otherwise we will continue our swift descent into authoritarianism and fascism. John Williams says, well, he's using your tax dollars better than you would use them anyway. No, that is not accurate. He's just putting them in his pocket. I don't think that I would do that with my money. Just give it to him and his rich buddies. Austin, may your farts be dry as well. Holly Turd says, what's the name of a policy? I mean, do you want to be more specific about that, Holly Turd? Francis says, we love Donald Trump. No, we don't. And yeah, if you don't ask a question, you get booted. That is the rule for people on the other side of the political aisle from me. Let's see here. You lost the election and Trump won. All right. YKYS says, need to talk about Israel more. Campus protests, Gaza, Iran. Russia Gate was Israel Gate. I don't know what you mean by Russia Gate was Israel Gate, YKYS. But I mean, yeah, the right-wing government of Israel, led by Benjamin Netanyahu, is currently doing war crimes and ethnically cleansing Palestine. And America should not be assisting that. We should not be sending them money and weapons, and we should be using all of our leverage to get Israel to start abiding by the rules of warfare and humanitarian law. Let's see here. No Dodo, good to see you again. Says, how do you feel about Elon being outed? Also, how do you feel about many of the right backing him? He's in control of X, of Twitter, which means that he has a pipeline for depositing propaganda into millions of people's noodles. And no surprise, he's using that tool to make himself seem like the greatest human being alive and a fucking genius. So yeah, it's just all lies and propaganda, regular old shit. And how do I feel about him being outed? I'm skeptical. The work of Doge is going to continue. He's done a shit ton of damage. He's going to get a bunch of government contracts. Like, he could return tomorrow. Like, I don't really think it makes that big of a fucking difference. We should be happy at least that the visual is that he is leaving. And that there seems to be either some tension between him and the Trump organization, or they're responding to the political pressure of us saying we hate you for doing all the things that you have been doing, Elon. But yeah, I don't really trust this administration to self-report who is doing what in it, and so yeah, I'm skeptical. Let's see here. Do you think the idea of democracy has issues? Yeah, but that's it's a moving target. It is an ongoing project that needs to be consistently adjusted. If you've ever played a game like an online, battle game like League of Legends or Heroes of the Storm or anything like that, what you find is that every once in a while the characters get tweaked because they're either too powerful or too nerfed. And that is what democracy needs. We need to constantly be fixing things and meddling with things in order to make sure that any problems that the forefathers could not anticipate in the 1700s get addressed in the correct way. Tyro Pillar says, you see the video of the guy booing the vet at the parade. No, I did not see that, Tyro Pillar. Let's see here. This person's just spamming the comments, so that's a block. Let's see here. Thank you, Javi. Thank you for being here as well. Manny says, why did Israel do 9/11 and we're still allies with them? Israel did not do 9/11, and that is misinformation, so you are out of here. Lolly says, tariffs equal democracy. No, that is not accurate, Lolly. And if you don't ask a question, you're going to get booted. Kinscap says, is the big, beautiful bill likely going to pass? That's a really good question. I don't know. I have no idea. It seems like there's a lot more pushback in the Senate, but, you'll never go broke betting on Republicans doing the wrong thing. So, I don't have a lot of faith that they are going to hold to their morals once Trump and his coalition starts, putting pressure on them to cave. They have a history of caving to Trump. Kosher dude, very funny. They have a history of caving to Trump's insane demands. So yeah, I'm not gonna make a prediction on whether it will pass or it will fail, but it has a better chance of failing if people like you and me put pressure on our elected representatives to cause it to fail, to tell them, to demand that they vote against it, because it is a terrible bill that will hurt lots of people. Lolly says, gonna censor my counterpoint. I don't know what your counterpoint was, Lolly. You said tariffs equal democracy, but that's not. It's not. I didn't censorship. David Reed says, how much did the BBB rely on tariffs? I can't remember. Are you talking about the Big Beautiful Bill, or are you talking about the Build Back Better program? As far as I know, Build Back Better didn't rest on tariffs. I don't know if there were any tariffs in it or not, but that was not like a central pivot, central part of the structure. It wasn't load bearing, as far as I know. Tell it like it is says Trump is doing a great job. Your screen name is inaccurate. Tell it like it is, and also if you don't ask a question, you get booted. Real Benda says thoughts on the mayoral race in NYC. I don't like where polling is. Like I don't like that Eric Adams and Cuomo seem to be at the top of that race. But there are great progressives in that race, and I just hope that New York gets out and votes for the progressives as opposed for the centrist corrupt ding-dongs like Cuomo and Eric Adams. And if you are the kind of person like me who believes that and you live in New York, then I hope that you will go out there and do the work of trying to get the good progressives elected instead of Cuomo or Adams. Let's see here. David Reed, Big Beautiful Bill. I don't know if there are tariffs in the Big Beautiful Bill. I know that there's a provision that allows Trump to ignore the courts, which is, troubling and concerning, and everybody should be pissed off about that. But yeah, as far as I know, there's no additional tariffs in there. I don't think they put it in there because I think that they just assumed that that Trump could do whatever tariffs he wanted to. Let's see here. Daniel Cueras says, can you explain more about the Big Beautiful Bill and how does it affect lower income brackets? Absolutely. So the Big Beautiful Bill basically does two things. It cuts taxes for rich people and giant corporations, and it cuts social services for the 99%. So Medicare, Medicaid, welfare. It shutters government agencies and makes it so that poor people have fewer resources. It also raises taxes on poor and working class Americans. That's like the general version. Kaylee Rediger says, why aren't you a fan of moderates? I'm not a moderate myself, so I'm always going to advocate for progressives. But moderates are fine, I guess. I don't view Eric Adams or Cuomo as moderates. I view them as corrupt and bad at their jobs. Nicole says, can you explain 1934 reciprocal tariffs bill passed by Congress? No, I cannot. I don't have that bill available on the top of my head. Sorry about that, Nicole. Girl Next Door says, has Trump done anything to help the middle class? Not as far as I can tell. Vix Dis says, is liking femboys against the Constitution? No, it is not. No, Dodo, good to see you again. Says, how do you feel about the Supreme Court Oklahoma charter school ruling? I'm concerned about it. I'm glad that, what's her name? Amy Coney Barrett recused herself, but there were still 4 Supreme Court justices who thought that would be a good idea. There are other cases working their way up to the Supreme Court that are similar that Amy Coney Barrett would not need to recuse herself on. And so, like I said, you'll never lose money betting on Republicans doing a wrong thing. So maybe she will surprise us and, vote against the religious charter schools in whatever cases is coming next. But I don't really have a lot of faith that she or her ilk will do things like that. No worries, no Dodo. Best Life Survivors, what do you think about the TPS? I don't remember the TPS. What is the TPS? Blowsma says, are conservatives also liberals? No, they're not. Xavier says, Canada being the 51st state, is it possible? No, it is not. Samurai Destroyer says, do you think general populace makes poor decisions? No, but I do think that the Republican Party has been defunding education for a really long time in order to make it easier for them to trick people into making poor decisions. Temporary protected status. Thank you very much, Dan Blackroy. Best Life Forever, what do you think about TPS? I think temporary protected status is great. Immigrants are a net positive on our country. Additionally, because of our declining birth rate, we're going to be needing immigrants to fill certain holes in our economy until we can transition to a non-growth model. Let's see here. Samurai Story says also, what do you think of the idea of populism? I'm generally pro the idea of populism, where certain policies are concerned, where the general public agrees on things like common sense gun control and taxing the wealthy and doing things for the majority of people to make their lives better as opposed to just doing things for the top 1%. It's definitely been weaponized in the past. People like Donald Trump campaigned as a populist and then ran as an oligarch. And so, yeah, I think I worry about fake populism and people weaponizing populism. But I think that as a governing philosophy, it has a lot of value. Javi and Kermit says, "What's your dream ticket for president next election?" Javi and Kermit, I always punt on this because I'm focused on the midterms. Midterms. We're not talking about 2028. We're talking about 2026. We're talking about making sure people are activated and informed about 2026 going forward. That's the fucking move. No, Dodo. Sam Register, are you against school who are like religious like Catholic schools? No, Catholic schools can exist. I just don't think that government money should be used to fund them because we have a doctrine of separation of church and state in America. No, Dodo says, what do you think is more important, social policy positions or financial policy positions? That's a really good question. You know, the way that social policy tends to try to fix things that are a little bit more amorphous, like getting people to not be racist or sexist or homophobic, it seems like, I don't know, it seems difficult. It seems like drawing in smoke, like trying to put out a bunch of different fires at the same time. Whereas fixing financial policy seems a little bit more concrete. It's like you put this tax policy in place, and then money starts going into these programs, and these people start getting more money, and these people, who have a lot, get taxed at higher rates. It seems a little bit more concrete. I don't know what's more important. My wife has made a very good argument concerning the idea that if you could solve racism today or economic inequality today, it's probably better to solve racism because the politics of income inequality is only able to exist because people sell it in the under the umbrella of racism. So yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult call. Kaylee Rediger says, "Is there a country we should be more like?" There is no perfect country, but there are policies from other countries that we should 100% adopt in this country. Michael Moore made a great documentary about this called "Where Should We Invade Next?" Basically talking about we should take the prison system from this country, the educational system from this country, and the social safety net from this country, et cetera, et cetera. And just because another country came up with it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. All right, let's see here. TNMN says, "Do ticks only have multiple wives in Utah, or is it also prevalent in other states?" I don't know of any other state that is permissible of multiple wives. I'm also not even sure if that is still a thing in Utah. Let's see here. David Reed says, "Name 3 issues you think could unite the left, liberals, and moderates." Income inequality, common sense gun control legislation, making the government work for the people as opposed to just for the 1%. Building low income housing, worker protections for unions. That all seems like the move. Kate says, "Where'd you study?" "I went to Kenyon College in Ohio." But Texas passed the 10 Commandments bill to be displayed in schools. Will this go before SCOTUS? I don't know. SCOTUS could probably boot it if they just like the decision. They could just let it stand. So I'm not really sure. This Supreme Court, because they are so extremely right wing, they tend to be more on the side of Christian extremists. So I guess we'll fucking see. Marnie says, "What will happen with Doge now that Musk is gone?" Doge is still doing Doge shit even though Musk is gone. So we were not out of the woods just because Elon is dipping. Gina Savonel says, "Do you think the Senate can stop the big beautiful bill that passed the House?" They can, and they are more likely to if people like you and me do the work of calling our senators, excuse me, especially if they're Republican senators, and demanding that they vote against it. Claire says, "Have you noticed the New York Times becoming more conservative? They seem to be normalizing crazy." Yeah, the New York Times and a lot of legacy media has for a long time been softening their criticism of the Republican Party and overhyping their criticism of the Democratic Party in order to seem as non-biased as humanly possible. This is a consequence of the fact that Republicans have been bitching and moaning falsely that the news media has a liberal bent for a really long time, and it has had detrimental effects on both our political discourse and the way that we view the parties in general. Like, people will say things like both parties are the same, or they're equally corrupt or equally terrible. They have a weird idea of the Democratic Party being like feckless and ineffective, And all of that is kind of like tied into this idea that the news needs to go harder on Democrats and softer on Republicans in order to keep up the impression of being as non-biased and impartial as humanly possible. It's part of the reason why I always advocate for progressive media, which is, which obviously has a political bent to it, but to me reads as way more accurate because they accurately call it the Democratic Party for when they do shitty things, but they also are not mealy-mouthed and sane-washing when the Republican Party does shit like ship a bunch of legal residents who have done nothing fucking wrong to concentration camps in El Salvador and fucking Libya. Engram says, what's stopping America from becoming a full-out oligarchy? Right now, the judiciary is doing a reasonably good job of striking down the Trump administration in trying to establish more of an oligarchy in this country. But we can't just expect that to hold. Like, we need to do the work. What's stopping America from becoming a full-out oligarchy is people like you and me doing the fucking work of making sure that it doesn't become an oligarchy. Because right now, there is no organization on the planet that can stop Trump and the Republican Party except educated and informed and activated citizens like you and me. Diego Vargas, we kind of are an oligarchy already. Yeah, I mean, we're kind of splitting hairs here. Like, I agree with you, Diego Vargas, but yeah, I don't want people to think that all hope is lost. That's what they want you to think. They want you to think that resistance is futile. And when they try to convince you of that, I want everybody watching this live stream to look back at them and say, "Fuck you, you weird ass fucking dork. I'm gonna keep on fighting." All right, Sam Register says, "Do you think populism is a result of when you have truth becomes relative and people are appealing to emotions and belief, and also the lack of trust in institutions and government?" I think that's probably part of it. I don't know. I could be wrong about this. The same way that fascism has multiple definitions, like there's the kind of like 300, the bird's eye view of fascism versus like what are the things that fascists do that we can kind of like line up with the Trump administration and see, oh shit, like they're doing all the things that fascism does. There's probably multiple definitions and specifics you could use to define populism that I am not as well versed on. But yeah, I think that it is the goal of the billionaire class and the right to make truth relative. It's the reason why they put so much money into propaganda and misinformation. It's the reason why people that only consume right-wing media are less well informed than people that don't even read the news at all. And as far as like appealing to people's emotions and belief, like that's also just like part of the propaganda playbook, Diego Vargas, Citizens United ruined everything. No arguments here. Engram says, to compare us to countries like France, why is America so enamored by its political leaders? That's a really good question. I don't know that America lionizes their political leaders in general, but I do think that there are certain political leaders that get like overhyped and overexposed. And when you kind of show the same person to a big group of people over and over again, there's a certain subset of the population that is going to, lionize them and look to them as like the Messiah going forward. Shit like this happens with, influencers and self-help gurus like, fucking what's his name? Tony something. Yeah, regardless. So yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily an American phenomenon. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Yeah, I couldn't tell you what the culture of other country is towards, lionizing and worshiping other individuals. Shindog Plays says, what's your opinion of Trump? He fucking sucks. Robbins, thank you, Tony Robbins. I appreciate you guys. FF Steve Fagol says, if you don't work for the DNC, why not? I don't know. I'm a stand-up comedian, and I've never applied for a job at the DNC. Let's see here. Dan Blackroyd says, ever notice people never say the right is alienating moderates? Only the left gets that BS critique. I have noticed that, Dan Blackroyd. Isn't that interesting? Dead Inside says, y'all think the Knicks can come back? I don't know. They have a history of consistently dropping the ball, both figuratively and literally. Let's see here. Kaylee Rudiger says, did you see Trump's proposal to lower dependence age from 18 to 7 years old? Yeah, I have not seen that proposal, Kaylee. I don't doubt its authenticity because it's exactly the sort of shit that the Trump administration would do. Like, let's make it so that poor people are not able to write off their kids on their taxes for as long as they have been able to, like fucking, yeah, let's fucking ruin poor people's lives in every fucking way that we can, Let's see here. GKB Love says Trump's let out fraudulent people and gang members. What happened to law and order? Well, the mistake that you made there, GK, was in thinking that the Republican Party had any ethos at all besides do whatever Trump says and cut taxes for the rich, make life better for billionaires and their giant corporations at the expense of everybody else. There's no law and order ethos. This is the party that voted for the guy who incited the riot that led to a bunch of fucking police officers getting beaten with fucking, fire extinguishers within an inch of their fucking life. And then they fucking reelected him. They don't give a shit about law and order. Let's see here. Veronica says, why do people support bills that are extremely harming USA financially? Because they've been lied to, Veronica. Their leaders are lying to them about what the bills are, what they do. They have lied to them saying that they're going to look after their best interests. And it is billionaires that have been flooding the social media stream with exactly the kind of propaganda that convinces people to continue voting for these psychopaths or just not vote at all. Alrighty, let's see here. Okay, back over to Samurai Destroyer over on Twitch. I think populism, since it is positioned to be against the elites and for the people, it is skeptical of the establishment expertise because of the past events like 2008 recession and 2003 Iraq War. Yeah, that's pretty on point, Samurai Destroyer. I think that's pretty accurate. But I do think that the definition of the elites is something that has been sort of like mangled and weaponized by the rights. Like, elite is whoever we get to say it is, So like somebody like Trump, who's a billionaire, or Elon Musk, who's a billionaire, like the richest person on the planet, they don't count as elites. But a fucking scientist who has spent his entire life going to college and studying diseases and is like the foremost expert on vaccines and shit like that. Fuck that guy for telling us what to think about vaccines. Fucking elite piece of shit. Like, it's one of those definitions that changes depending on who you're talking to. That's one of the things I think it's such a dangerous term to rely on. Let's see here. Daniel Nova. Trump has doubled his money since his return, over $5 billion. That is completely correct. Spike says right now AOC is the spokesperson for the Democrats. Kinda. She's whoever people want to be the spokesperson is the spokesperson. People are following J.B. Pritzker and Tim Walz and Chris Murphy. There are a lot of Democrats that are doing great work in fighting this administration. But yeah, I don't think that we get to decide who the spokesperson is in a country of 330 million people. Spike says, how could you ever want AOC to be a spokesperson for any side of the government? I mean, AOC's great. She's a great communicator. She's great politics. I don't really understand what a criticism of her would be. Spike says, why would you fight the progress that we're making? Spike, why do you say we? Like, are you working in the Trump administration right now? And as far as like progress, the government is spending more now than they ever did during the Biden administration, and we're getting fewer in government services. Trump is openly accepting bribes from foreign nations, including adversarial nations, including dictatorships. They've suspended habeas corpus for people, just fucking shipping them off to concentration camps in El Salvador and Libya. Like, I don't think that that's doing great work. I don't think that that's progress, Spike says, let's talk about the Panama Canal. Let's talk about gas prices. All right, you're not a real person, my man. Sorry, you are out of here. Oh, yeah, 0 followers and only following 2 people. Yeah, sure thing, Spike. Let's see here. Joni Calder says, I like your opinion of Trump. And I like you, Joni. Momo Zip says, the only legitimate complaint on AOC is capitulating too much, but she still does it less than most. Yeah, government is complicated. And I don't really... truck with a lot of the descriptions of Democrats caving or capitulating. If a Democrat does do something that is like giving away too much in a what do you call it, in a negotiation, I think that is a completely fair criticism. But a lot of what Democrats do gets called capitulation and shit like that I don't think qualifies as that definition. It's part of this like zeitgeist fake opinion that we have of the Democratic Party being worse than it actually is. Ray Riker says, do you still believe the Russian collusion hoax? I mean, I believe it because it wasn't a hoax. If you read the Mueller report, there was coordination between Russia and the Trump administration. Like, it was a real thing. Mueller just said he didn't have enough evidence to convict because the Trump administration was guilty of obstruction of justice because they destroyed all the evidence that the Mueller team said that they had to keep. So, I don't know why there's another thing in the zeitgeist that people think that Russia was fake for some fucking reason. Uganda Galaxo says, "Is it okay? I want to know your opinion on other stuff other than Trump." Yeah, sure. Ask whatever you like, Uganda. All right. Let's see here. Samurai Destroyer over on Twitch. Do you think U.S. should be a one-party state if you truly believe Republican is worse than Democrat? Excellent question, Samurai Destroyer. So right now, the American government is essentially a one-party state because the House, the Senate, the presidency, and much of the judiciary is in the pocket of the Republican Party. And that is really concerning. It is really concerning that Trump is accepting bribes from foreign nationals and the Republicans in Congress aren't doing anything about it, and the Supreme Court isn't doing anything about it. That is the danger of being a one-party state. But the other side of that coin is if there was only the Democratic Party, it wouldn't be a one-party state because the Democratic Party is a big tent of a bunch of little groups. You've got the LGBTQ coalition, you got the Black Caucus, the Latino Caucus, you've got the centrists and the moderates. You got people like AOC. You had people like Joe Manchin. It is a group that is by definition always. Oh no, I'm having some connection issues on TikTok. Waiting until I'm back. Okay, it is a group that by definition is not a monoculture. It is bifurcated and constantly debating amongst itself on what the best policy is. I think that's part of the Democrats' strength. And if it was just the Democratic Party from toe to tip and there were no Republicans, we would still have plenty of debate and argument and dysfunction in the government. Alrighty. Uganda Galaxo says, do you think that if hypothetically Mitt Romney ran in 2016 and won, we would be better? Ran against Hillary Clinton? Yeah, I do think that. Any Republican is going to do the things that Republicans do. They're going to cut regulations, which makes it less safe for us to live in the world where we can't trust the air that we breathe or the water that we drink or the food that we eat or the medications that we take. He was going to cut taxes for the billionaire class, which is going to increase income inequality, make people more desperate, increase the cost of living crisis and shit like that. But there are a lot of other worse things about Donald Trump than the fact that, Donald Trump was going to do all that shit and did do all that shit. And in addition, started actually attacking our democracy. I can't say enough negative things about Mitt Romney, but he seems to at least have a modicum of moral fiber where, he stood up for his beliefs and voted to impeach Donald Trump. And he was like the only senator who fucking did that. And so, I'll give him his flowers. But we're talking about shades of shittiness. Kaylee Rediger says, what is a Republican that would win against Trump if it was Republican versus Republican? I don't believe there is a Republican that would win against Trump. He had a primary in 2020. Everybody got their ass kicked. Everybody capitulated. Everybody bent the knee. Maddening chat says President Kennedy put a man on the moon. President Obama put a man in the ladies' room. What a really weird thing to say, Maddening chat. You're out of here, buddy. See you later. Mr. Mobius says, why did Trump take out his homie Epstein? Excellent question, Mr. Mobius. You should ask Dan Bongino and Kash Patel about that because they've got all the fucking Epstein files that they are promising to release to everybody. Lauren, good to see you again. Bailey Renee. Oh no, I'll look for your question, Bailey Renee. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't see it, Bailey Renee. I'm so sorry. Gene says, how can Trump get away with so many corrupt schemes? For two reasons. Number one, the government right now is currently under Republican control, and Republicans are either too scared of Trump to do anything to stand against him, or they are equally corrupt and on board with his corrupt mission. So the people that would hold him accountable aren't holding him accountable. And the other thing is because billionaires are flooding social media and mainstream media with a bunch of propaganda to convince people to either vote for Republicans or not vote at all. And that gives Republicans a ton of governmental power in order to let Trump off the hook. Additionally, from 2016 to 2020, Trump was able to install 3 Supreme Court justices who were going to block for him in the judiciary so that he could get away with all of the shit that he's done. And he additionally sat 300 other crazy, extremist, unqualified judges like Matthew Kacsmaryk and Amy and Eileen Cannon, who have been, blocking for him ever since. Joni Calder says, do you think Trump Jr. will run in 2028? He's not going to run until his dad passes away. But he's definitely running. The Trump administration, the Trump family is trying to create trying to make the presidency into more of a dictatorship that you just like hand to your kids once you die. Let's see here. M dashes. Grumpy Cat, good to see you. Any new stats on effects of this administration toward tourism? I mean, just tourism dollars keep on going down, Grumpy Cat. I don't have a fresh number for you if that's what you're asking. What is this corrupt mission? Also, haven't more billions come out speaking out against Trump, i.e., Soros? Bloomberg, Cuban, etc. How long can Trump defy Supreme Court order concerning Garcia? That's a really good question, Badger. Let me get to that next. So M dash, there is this idea perpetuated by the billionaire class that the Democratic Party is in the pocket of the billionaires, and that it's actually Republicans that are on the side of the working man. That narrative is 1,000% false. It is completely not true. You named, let's see here, Soros, Bloomberg, Cuban, etc. I'll throw Bill Gates on there as well. Warren Buffett, we're talking about what? We can name, I don't know, 5, 10 billionaires, something like that. There are over 1,000 billionaires just in America alone. And 75% of all of their political donations repeatedly go to Republican Party candidates. And it makes sense that they would, because the Republican Party platform is a giveaway to the billionaire class. They cut taxes for the billionaires. They cut regulations for their businesses so that they don't have to spend extra money to make sure that their runoff from their chemical factories isn't going into our water and our food and our crops and shit like that. Also, you have other billionaires like Vladimir Putin and the Saudis and the Qataris who, because they are also operating in authoritarian states, want people like Donald Trump, who is corrupt, who they can bribe to do shit. They're giving him money as well. So yeah, I don't know. I hope that you are convinced, M dash. I can go into more details if you like, but that is the long and short of it. The idea that more billionaires support Democrats is a lie. The billionaires have been in the pocket of the Republican Party and the right wing of this country for a very, very long time. Get ready with your bingo cards, regulars. Read Dark Money by Jane Mayer, everybody. Read Dark Money by Jane Mayer. Let's see here. Tyro Pillar says, are those just the millionaires we know about? That is another issue that we have with Citizens United, is that we don't know all of the money that is going into our political system. But the people that study this, I believe Nobel Prize-winning economist Robert Reich has crunched the numbers on. 75% of all billionaire money goes to Republican candidates, goes to electing Republicans. Nourish by Valerie says, let's not judge based on labels, Republican or Democrats. Nourish, I don't judge people based on those labels, but I do judge elected officials based on those labels, and I judge talking heads based on those labels, because they know what they're fucking doing. If a voter gets tricked into voting for a Republican, or they've grown up in a Republican household and they've never really looked into it, so they identify as a Republican, I'm not going to throw shade at that person. But anybody who is elected on the Republican ticket and is doing the work of the Republican Party, anybody who is out there spreading Republican propaganda like Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk and Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson and all those fucking lying ding-dongs, yeah, those people I will 100% judge for their label, because they are lying to people. They are doing real damage to this country. They are killing people. They are letting them die. They are effectively causing their death. They are supporting an administration that is shipping people who are here legally, who have done nothing wrong, to fucking concentration camps in Libya and El Salvador and South Sudan. 100% I am judging Republican politicians and Republican talking heads. But if you're a Republican voter who got tricked, no hate, no tea, no shade. There are plenty of liberals that got tricked into not voting as well. Nourish by Valerie says, but there are a lot of liars in the Democratic Party too. Biden, Cory Booker, LOL. Yes, but Nourish by Valerie, there is a big difference in scale. And again, this is not my opinion. The data scientists, they've crunched the numbers. The Republican Party's platform is built on lies. The Democratic Party's platform is built not on lies. There are more Republicans telling bigger lies than there are Democrats. It's a difference between the size of the sun and the size of an ant, There's a big difference between Biden saying, I'm healthy enough to run, and Trump saying that January 6th was, a day of peace and that he won the 2020 election. JD Texas says they both lie. When you say that, JD Texas, you are giving cover for the worst liars. So that is an inaccurate thing, and I hope that you will stop saying that. Grumpy Cat says, I grew up Republican until I went to college and learned a lot of things and volunteered. I'm happy to hear that. There was another. So yeah, M dash. You wanted me to go into. You wanted me to go into detail on the corrupt mission, and I 100% will. Snooze Lose says Trump number one. That's not a question, so you're blocked. I don't care if anybody has a different opinion than me, but actually ask a question, be part of the conversation. The problem is when you just want to vote for Democrat just because of Democrats. Nourish by Valerie, I think what you're trying to say here is that I'm biased because I'm Team Democrat. I don't give a shit about Democrats. I vote for the platform of the Democratic Party, which is for the people, which is for the 99%, which strengthens workers' unions, which protects the environment, which makes sure that our air is safe to breathe and our water is safe to drink. And the billionaire platform of the Republican Party, just cutting taxes for billionaires and raising it on everybody else, not helping anybody with the cost of living crisis. Like, that's the reason why I stand for fucking Democrats and their platform, my man. Negative Ghostwriter. I just speak the truth. Politicians play both sides of the political spectrum. Yeah, JD Texas, again, you are out of here. You did not ask a question, and also you are completely full of shit. Lola Bob Panouf says, but objectively speaking, both parties do lie. Yes, but one party lies more and bigger than the other party. Democrats are better on this. And again, this is not my opinion. Data scientists have crunched the numbers, and Democratic politicians lie way, 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 way less, and their lies are way, 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 way smaller. Let's see. All right, so yeah, M dash. You wanted to ask about the corruption. Okay, so number one. Ever since Trump has been in office, he has been making money off of the presidency. Now, there is a thing in the Constitution called the Emoluments Clause, which says that presidents are not allowed to accept money from other people, specifically from foreign nationals, because it is a risk, it is a corrupting element. It is potentially bribery. Maybe somebody in Saudi Arabia bribes Trump to do something that hurts Americans but helps Saudi Arabia. You know, that is a concern. And the Trump administration has been, you know, he kept open his, you know, what do you call it? He was continuing to operate his golf courses and his hotels and shit like that, so that foreign nationals could come in and stay in his rooms and tell him, hey, we stayed in your room. Can we get this oil deal signed or whatever? He accepted a $400 million plane from the Qatari royals. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, got $2 billion from the Saudis for some fucking reason. You know, he's got a fucking meme coin, which is basically unlimited amounts of dark money contributions. Like, we've got no record of who is giving him what amount of money. It is blatant, obvious corruption, in addition to stealing money from American taxpayers by doing things like constantly golfing at Mar-a-Lago and charging Secret Service 3 times the regular rate for staying in those rooms, which they have to fucking do because he's there. So yeah, there's you know, there's all the details. M dash. I hope that you are here in good faith. I hope that you are hearing the things that I'm saying. And Lauren, I understand your frustration, but you got to remember that people are a product of the information environments that they are existing in. So the same way that Republicans are getting tricked into voting for, you know, for MAGA and other Republicans, liberals are getting tricked into not voting at all. Let's see here. But every sitting president since George Washington has accepted gifts. I am here in good faith, just very curious. So any president before Trump who has accepted a gift never accepts it for themselves personally. They accept it for the United States. And as part of policing that, any gift has to be approved by Congress. That is not what the Trump administration is doing. They are just taking things for themselves and not getting approval by Congress. It is the most obvious and blatant corruption and bribery scheme that we have seen maybe ever in this country. Storm is Kevin says, why are red southern states high welfare, poor education? I mean, red states exist because of tax income that comes in from blue states. Yeah, you know, red states are a microcosm of the system that Republicans want for America, where education is defunded so that people can be tricked by their propaganda easier, and they are stuck in cycles of poverty so that they just have this, pool of, potential slave wage workers to pick from, Well, excuse me, everybody. Unlucky Pants says, is immigration a net positive or a drain on our economy? Please explain why. Immigration is a net positive because while immigrants are ineligible for many social safety net programs, they still pay into taxes payroll taxes and sales taxes and things of that nature. Also, because our population is currently in decline, we need more bodies in order to fill holes in our growth-based economic model until we can move to a more sustainable economic model. And we need them to be doing jobs that Americans just won't do. There are farmers right now whose fruit is dying on the vine because nobody will do that job except for immigrants. User a bunch of numbers says, did Musk interfere in the election? Yes, but I don't believe that he hacked all the voting machines in order to increase Trump's vote share. But I do believe that he is guilty of campaign finance violations. You know, he was bribing people to register to be Republican voters. He gave Trump $250 million to run his campaign. He was sending out fake mailers that said that they were from the Harris campaign. He put a ton of money into spreading misinformation on social media, including his own social media of X. So yeah, Elon Musk and the Republican Party are 100% guilty of voter suppression and electioneering and voting and, spreading misinformation about the elections. But they did not, as far as I know, go into every single voting machine in the country and, start changing vote totals. Storm is Coming says, did Republicans do voter suppression, and has voter suppression gotten worse? The answer is yes. Republicans consistently close down polling locations in Democratic areas. They also pass voter ID laws, which are strategically designed to keep people that generally vote for Democrats from being able to vote. And in order to make it harder, they will close down DMVs in Democratic areas so that it's harder for people to actually get the IDs that they need to vote. Gerrymandering, misinformation, dark money campaign finance violations, all of that is part of the Republican method of lying and cheating to win elections. Osher says, are you going to run for Congress? It does not work with my schedule, unfortunately. I'm a stand-up comedian. M- says it was accepted by the Pentagon Defense Department, which is accordance with federal regulations. M- that is inaccurate. It has to be approved by Congress. That language is very clear. That it has, and the precedent is very clear. It has always been done that way, and trying to move that work to the Pentagon, which is currently being run by Pete Hegseth, who is a Trump lackey who will just say yes to whatever Trump tells him to do. It is unconstitutional. It is illegal. It is unethical. I hope that you get your news from a different source, M-, because that is just wildly inaccurate what you just said. No tea, no shade. I'm glad that you're here. Grumpy Cat says, was Doge ever confirmed by Congress? No, it was not ever confirmed by Congress, which makes everything that they have done illegal. Let's see here. Veronica says we should demand a recount. So Veronica, normally I'd be down with that, but here's the thing. They've already done what are called sort of like soft audits, where they sort of like randomly pick voting machines to do hand counts on in swing districts, and all of those numbers have lined up within the margin of error. So there is no evidence that voter tallies were manipulated, unfortunately. Will Filipinski says, what's your opinion on the trade deficit with Canada? Trade deficits can be a problem, but they're usually not. I have a trade deficit with the grocery store where I buy tons of food from them, and they buy exactly 0 things from me. Let's see here. Jamie, Ohio here. If you're already registered, do you have to re-register to show birth certificate and marriage? So Jamie, a lot of this has to do with what the laws are in your state. As far as I know, there is no federal legislation around voter ID laws or voter registration. It really is just state and local issues. Because Ohio has a lot of Republican representation, they have passed a lot of bills that make it harder for people to vote. So you do need to double and triple check your voter registration for every election going forward. Republican states also have a habit of purging voter rolls, particularly of people that live in Democratic districts. Isn't that interesting? Republican states also have they tend to reject ballots that they don't think that the signatures line up, and those ballots tend to come from Democratic areas more often than not. Isn't that interesting? So yeah, you have to be really careful. You have to double and triple check that that you're still registered to vote, that your vote was counted accurately. It's another part of the reason why I don't think people should vote for Republicans, because they make it so that you have to worry that your vote isn't going to count. Mr. Hairline, W. Page, good to see you again, my friend W. Page. W. Page says, SAVE Act is stuck in the Senate. It will most likely not pass the Senate. They would need 60 votes. Mr. Hairline has an airline, says, why Fox News promotes ideology, not facts? Because they are a propaganda network, and they are in the business of making sure that Republicans get elected. Jamie, I appreciate you thank you for taking time to ask a question. M Dash says, "Are you intentionally misrepresenting that the plane was to Trump and not the DoD? When Trump's term is over, he won't keep the plane. He will keep the plane. M Dash. I'm not intentionally misrepresenting anything. If you're here in good faith, please don't tell me that I'm lying to you, because everything that I'm saying you can double check yourself. Just please double check them on non-biased independent news sites like the Reddit news feed or Ground News, and not right-wing channels like Breitbart or OAN or Fox News or anything like that. But yeah, if you just ask me, are you lying on purpose, I'm going to boo you, because that is not a good faith question. Burke Villa says, you talk a lot about rep. What do you think about Dems? The Democratic Party is filled with people who are operating in good faith, whether I disagree with them or agree with them. I don't love a lot of the things that Nancy Pelosi has done. I don't think that it was the correct thing for her to do, to go out there and say that it was fine that when politicians do insider trading. I think she should have retired a long time ago. I don't think that she should be supporting the gerontocracy, that in the Democratic Party, the centrist wing that says that just because you've been there for a long time, you deserve the most power within the administration. But she still was a trailblazer. She still is responsible for getting the Affordable Care Act over the line. There are problems, but they are good faith problems. There are mistakes, but they are good faith mistakes. I believe in the platform of the Democratic Party, and I believe in and support way more Democratic politicians than Republican politicians, because they're better. They are just better. Let's see here. Not saying you're intentionally lying, just saying that the plane is going to the Department of Defense, which is reported by sources across party lines. So the Department of Defense is quote unquote taking the plane so that they can retrofit it into being Air Force One, which is a extremely expensive and long process that will not, it means that if Trump leaves office in 4 years, he will never use that plane as Air Force One. But after he spends a whole bunch of taxpayer money like fucking outfitting it and shit like that, it's going to go to his library, which will, for all intents and purposes, be his plane. And I guarantee you, M Dash, I guarantee you that if he leaves office, he will be flying around on that plane. I guarantee you. It's not going to be sitting at his library as like an exhibit that people can see when the Qataris gave him this great gift. I fucking guarantee you he is taking that plane. Or he'll sell it and he'll keep the money. Let's see here. Burkeville, USA says, "Nah, I'm looking for the moment of unity." I'm trying to build unity with other voters, but I will not unify with the Republican Party. And I'm separating the Republican Party. The Republican Party that I'm talking about is elected officials and Republican talking heads like Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, Tucker Carlson, all those fucking ding-dongs. If you're a Republican voter, no tea, no shade. I want to form a coalition with you. I want to connect with you. I want to engage with you. I want to have unity with you. But fucking Mitch McConnell, Ted Cruz, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Ben Shapiro, all those fucking assholes know exactly what they're fucking doing. I will not unify with them. It is my goal to get people to vote the Republican Party out of office and defund their propaganda channels like Fox News and shit like that. Storm is coming says, "Do you believe white nationalist Christians have got us where we're at?" They are part of the Republican piece of shit coalition, 100%. In 100% good faith, I find it erotic that wasting taxpayers' money only comes into the conversation while discussing the plane when it's spent efficiently against all parties. There are problems with government efficiency, 100%, but there's only one party that balloons the deficit with, cuts to billionaires and their giant corporations. And there's only one party that is purposefully spending taxpayer money to put it in fucking Donald Trump's party bucket. And that's the Republican Party. Like, it is so different to have a government agency that is maybe not being as efficient with their money as possible than Donald Trump using the power of the presidency to make himself billions and billions of dollars richer. M Dash, don't worry about... Can you give your take on why you support the left? M Dash, I'm happy to answer that question, but hang out for a second. Let me get to some of these other ones. Let's see here. Josh Barnett says, "What's your opinion on the age turning to 7?" I've only just heard about this today, Josh Barnett, and I'm pretty sure it's accurate, because that is the whole modus of the fucking Republican Party, is fuck the poor. And if you change the age of dependency from 18 to 7, you are making it so that people cannot write off their kids on their taxes anymore, that those kids are going to have to start filing taxes, which is going to be a financial burden on them, even if they have nothing to report. So yeah, it's fucking Republican bullshit, plain and simple. Storm is Coming said Trump had the highest deficit of any president in history, first time in office. Is this a fact? I believe so. I'm 99% sure that is true. Let's see here. AGC says why red states vote red no matter who is running. Propaganda, misinformation. A lot of the goal of the Republican Party has been to make being a Republican part of people's identity, so that any information that contradicts that gets immediately ejected, and that you don't vote for policies and you don't vote for platforms and you don't vote for politicians. You vote because you're a Republican and your father was a Republican and everyone that you go to your church is a Republican, and you can't be a good Christian if you're not a Republican, etc., etc. Tucker Cassidy says, "What do you feel like the focus of power is within the Democratic Party? Any notable characters?" At the moment, it seems like the tension is, and has been for a long time, between the progressive wing and the centrist wing. The centrists believe that progressives are too extreme and are therefore losing us elections. The progressives believe that the centrists are too capitulating and too milquetoast and don't give people anything to actually vote for, and so they lose us elections. I am personally a progressive. I find the progressive argument to be much more persuasive, and I find the progressive platform to be much more beneficial. And I believe that making the case for that platform will win Democrats elections in the future. But I'm sure that there are a bunch of pollsters out there who will tell you that in fucking blue districts in Virginia, pushing the progressive agenda is a fucking, ballot killer or whatever. But yeah, that's not really my specialty. All right. So M Dash, you asked me, can you give your take on why you support the left? So I support the left because I believe in the platform of the left. I have seen, since I've been paying attention to politics, which is roughly since like the mid 2000s, the Republican Party do nothing to help the 99% and only help the 1%. They cut taxes for the billionaires, who they're fine. They have plenty of money. Trickle-down economics doesn't work. The right consistently talks about trickle-down economics like it's the move. They're still out there fucking talking about the Laffer curve and supply-side economics, which is all just different words for trickle-down economics. And we have worse income inequality today than we did during the fucking Gilded Age, which was an age that was named for how bad the fucking income inequality was back then. And I'm sorry, but we do not need to have people fucking living on the streets so that billionaires can have fucking 5 golden private jets that they use to commute between their 10 fucking golden mega mansions when they're not taking fucking helicopters to their fucking 5 golden, fucking mega yachts. It's fucking infuriating, man. And also, the government protects us. That is what it does. It makes sure that our air is safe to breathe and our water is safe to drink. Fucking watch Aaron Brockovich. That is what corporations want to do. They want to poison you so that they can be richer. Read fucking Dark Money. The Kochs blew up a fucking teen so they could save $5 million a year using a pipeline that they knew was fucking unsafe. And it is the government only that has the power to stand up to the billionaire class, and it is the Democratic Party that wants to use the government for that purpose, as opposed to the Republican Party, which is always just saying, hey, the government's in the way, everything would be so much better if it was just a free market, etc., etc. The fact that the Republican Party is still standing for Donald Trump after all the fucking shit that he's done in his first term and since is also evidence that no human being should ever vote for the Republican Party again. I don't like cheaters and liars, and that's how they fucking win elections. But let's talk about the Democratic platform. As far as, like, what are they actually trying to accomplish? That's a little bit more specific, but here is like a collection of policy ideas that is in the ethos of the Democratic Party, from the progressive side to the centrist side. Universal healthcare, universal basic income, universal public college, taxing the billionaires, using that money to ease the cost of living crisis, build more houses to make sure that we can get rents to go down so people can actually fucking afford to live, increasing the minimum wage, returning bodily autonomy to women so they can not die of fucking sepsis while they're waiting for their pregnancy to get so bad that doctors can be forced to save their life. There's a fucking poor woman who's legally dead right now, who's being kept alive because they won't because she has to carry her baby to term against the wishes of her family. Yeah, it's a fucking nightmare. The Democratic Party believes in climate change, which I can look out my window and fucking see that climate change is real. You know what I mean? And the Republican Party is still denying it. That is a tiny collection of factors is the reason why I vote left and I advocate for voting for the Democratic Party as opposed to the Republican Party. I hope that you're still here, M Dash. Thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging in good faith. Mr. Perma says, yo, back at you, my man. Meat Soda, good to see you again. Jared, I've been reflecting about my political opinions because of you. I've always been Republican, you know. I'm really glad to hear that, Meat Soda, you know. And, you know, if we still disagree at the end of the day, like, I'm totally cool with that. But I'm just glad that you're still open to, you know, taking in this new information. Let's see here. All right. Burkeville, USA says Dems not doing it either. What exactly do you think Dems are not doing? Burkesville. Instead, we create homelessness. It's called the government. Yeah, you're not asking questions. You're not here in good faith. So you are out of here. Ronald Reagan lowered the taxes on the rich. They have never been raised since. Is this a fact? As storm is coming. It's close to being a fact. Storm is coming. So every Republican administration since Reagan has drastically cut taxes on billionaires, and Democratic administrations have raised taxes on billionaires, but they've only been able to do it a little bit because of fraction support for that idea. So obviously, no Republican is going to vote for raising taxes on the rich, and there is a more neo-lib, corporate-friendly wing of the Democratic Party that is not going to allow like a massive tax cut on the wealthy. So they've only been able to do it like a little bit here and there. Excuse me, I got another burp coming. Woof. Alrighty. All right, scrolling down to the bottom, Mr. Hairline has an airline says, explain the tactic of calling everyone a communist if they disagree with the Republican Party. So the poison of red fear baiting that started during the McCarthy era was very powerful and was very effective. And the fact that we had this long Cold War with Russia, who called themselves communist even though they were not, that just further cemented into a bunch of people's minds communism equals bad. Communism equals Russia, Russia bad, communism bad. These people are communists, they are bad, etc., etc. Let's see here. User a bunch of numbers says, how about no taxes? With no taxes, how would we pay for things that everybody benefits from? How would we pay for paved roads and fire departments and schools and shit like that? Ella says, what do you think about having a limit on the pardon? I say get rid of the pardon. Yeah, what the fuck, man? Yeah, not what the fuck you, Ella, but like why do presidents need that power? I don't really see. Matt says you're not a political expert. I mean, I kind of am. Karen Sherman says, I think that the Dems also want to get money out of politics. They do want to get the money out of politics. Thank you, Karen Sherman. Yeah, there are so many things that are better about Democratic politicians, the Democratic platform, that when I get asked why I am on the side of the left as opposed to the side of the right, things just get lost in the cracks, And like, yeah, last time I was asked that question, I left out bodily autonomy. This time I left out campaign finance reform, Meat Soda says, do you think China is a good example of communism and socialism? I do not, Meat Soda. There has never been a fully communist or socialist country. Republicans will often point to Venezuela as an example of socialism not working. They'll point to Cuba as an example of communism not working. But none of those countries are either socialist or communist, or even fully socialist or fully communist. It's much better to think about communism and socialism as a spectrum. We have both of them here in America. Every company that is employee owned is communist. Everything that we use to pay for that benefits everybody in America using tax dollars is socialism. When you use people's taxpayer dollars to pay for healthcare for everybody, that's socialism. And it is not necessary. It's not, the people on the right will use those words as to mean bad when that is, you kind of have to agree on what the definition is before you actually engage on what is communism, what is socialism. But yeah, in other countries, they have different, ratios of how much communism has with socialism and how much capitalism. And I think that just based on, if we're just looking at healthcare alone, this country needs to be more socialist. If we are looking at income distribution between, like how much a CEO gets paid versus the people actually doing the work, we need more communism in this country. We should be incentivizing companies to be employee owned, in my opinion. AGC says, why Fox News is allowed to lie and manipulate their viewers and nobody do something about it. I believe they're using a loophole by which they describe themselves as news entertainment as opposed to straight news. I'm also not really sure what our laws are concerning how accurate news channels have to be. But yeah, the fact that they continue to exist in their current form says to me that either they are manipulating a loophole or our laws are not in any kind of shape to hold them accountable. Let's see here. Logan says, you're absolutely correct. Capitalism has been blown out of proportion and only benefits the rich. Completely agree with you. All right. Let's see here. Joni Calder says, with all the deportations, crime is going down. That is inaccurate, Jolie Calder. Crime has been going down since the Biden administration came into office, thanks to reforms from the Biden administration. Deporting people who have done no crimes does not decrease the amount of crime that happens in America. As the cost of living crisis increases, as it will, because Republicans are currently in charge, we will start to see violence and crime continue to skyrocket. That is one of the only political predictions that I feel confident in making. That and Trump is going to try to die in office. But thank you everybody for being here, and thank you for all the questions. And I hope that I was informative for you guys. If you have any questions that I was not able to get to, or you think of any questions later, my DMs are open. You can also email me through my website, jarrettberenstein.com. That is also where you can go to see my live streaming schedule, my Patreon, my store, my stand-up schedule. It is a great one-stop shop resource. You can also go to my Discord if you want to see like book recommendations and podcast recommendations. And if you want to know what the work is, the work that we can do to fight against the Trump administration. But I appreciate any support that you can give me, whether it's the free kind or the money kind. You can join my Patreon, but you don't have to. So yeah, and lastly, my heartfelt plea that everybody do the work. Everybody do the work. And if you don't know what the work is, go to my Discord, look it up, and do some of it. You don't got to do all of it. Just do what you can. If you are a single mother of 5 with only one leg, you obviously can't do as much canvassing as a 20-year-old who has no fucking attachments whatsoever and has got a lot of gas in the tank. But just do what you can. Do what you can and recruit other people to do the work. We got to spread this message across the country like a fucking phone tree. That is the only way that we get out of this fucking authoritarian death spiral in this country. All right, let's see here. Lauren says, what can I do in my super blue state? I'm a mother of 5. Groups like Indivisible, run for something, and Vote Save America, they need bodies. CG Bake says, wait, I asked you something. Oh, what did you ask me? CGB Cakes, looking for your question. CBG Cakes, looking for that question. CBG Cakes, don't see the question. CBG Cakes, not seeing your question. Sorry, Mr. or Mrs. Cakes. I apologize. Meat Soda says, when do you start your lives? Monday through Friday, usually start around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. I tend to start a little bit early because I like doing these. All right, yeah. CG Bakes, where's your question? Just ask it again, CG Bakes, we're here. Is there any other way to remove the president from position besides impeachment? There's the 25th Amendment where the people in his cabinet get to vote on removing him because they have information about how unfit he is for office that the rest of us don't. Yeah, that's probably not going to happen because everybody that's in Trump's administration right now is a full-on sycophant in the tank for Donald Trump, exactly as corrupt and full of shit as he is. All right, everybody, CG Bakes. I didn't see your question. Send it to me via email or shoot me a DM or something like that. I'll do my best to get you an answer as soon as I can. Have a good Thursday, everybody. I will see you tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel. Do the work. Be good to yourselves. And do not give up hope. Revolutions are built on hope. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye. 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 Goodbye. Goodbye.